My career, our hope. As you continue the journey towards self-realization, you may also discover the importance of choosing the right career as a tool to respond to the needs of society and contribute to the global economy. The crisis situation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic may introduce careers or jobs that you might consider to pursue. Ultimately, the career that you choose is interlinked to the societal needs and global economy in its broader perspective. Your career choice will reflect the roles that you will take to contribute in the progress of the society and in the economy as a whole. Therefore, careful consideration of your career is essential. The career or profession of the people living in the society dictates the level of its economic status, which eventually gives impact to the economy on a larger scale. At the onset of this pandemic, there are jobs or professions that are hardest hit, and there are those that survived. The three sectors of our economy have eventually reacted with the presence of this pandemic, which will eventually affect your choice of career. The primary sectors, which include industries involved in the extraction of raw materials, secondary sectors involved in the production of finished products, and tertiary sectors includes all service provision industries, which must be given due consideration in choosing a job or career. Primary sector. Agriculture. The resilience of the agricultural sector has been tested by the COVID-19 outbreak. You must be aware that farmers have the greater chances of surviving because they have the supply of foods ranging from rice, vegetables, and fruits. However, these supplies must be distributed to markets to be able to balance food distribution. It is, however, important to consider the shipment of these products, as the transportation sector is also affected by the pandemic. Petroleum and oil. This sector has been affected due to the paralyzed transportation and still on its very limited operation up until almost a year of the COVID-19 pandemic. Prices went low and slowly swerved up and down as an effect of the unstable economy. Secondary sector. Manufacturing industry. Importation and exportation issues, staffing difficulty, and limited workers stood out as the key concerns for this kind of business due to disruption to supply chains, quarantine protocols, and self-isolation policies. Manufacturing companies of all sorts are severely affected by the present pandemic locally and internationally. Tertiary sector. Education. COVID-19 has affected all levels of the education system, from preschool to tertiary education and even those at the postgraduate level. Different modes of teaching and learning were introduced, but adjusting to this new normal trend takes longer, especially to those who are not digitally oriented teachers. Many private schools prefer to close due to some very minimal learners, which will affect the hiring of more teachers and will eventually have widespread socioeconomic implications. Some of the schools opted for online classes with the intention of preventing spread of the virus. As of this time, people in the education sector are on its continued adjustment with the online mode of transactions, which will require those who are aspiring future educators to be more digitally oriented. The classroom setting orientation, which was the primary concern of educators before, will take its shift to holding classes through virtual or online mode. Finance industry. COVID-19 has affected communities, businesses, and organizations globally, unintentionally affecting the financial markets and the global economy. To combat these effects, central banks globally have intervened to ensure balance in the economy. Many of the bank employees are forced to resume working on-site in several banks, observing the IATF rules and protocols. Some of them have contracted the virus due to the working environment, which utilizes air conditioning units inside their work premises. Some others who are working in companies have opted to work remotely through the work-from-home mode. Hospitality, tourism, and aviation. The hospitality and travel industry are the most hard-hit sectors. Hotels and resorts all around the world have announced a temporary suspension, but is now slowly going back its operation, but in a very limited and cautious manner. Many of its employees were jobless due to the risk of virus exposure. Luxury ships around the world have stopped its operation, causing millions of its workers to go back home. The tourism sector is also currently one of the hardest hit by the outbreak of this COVID-19, with severe impact on both travel supply and demand. Tourism was one of the most in-demand jobs before COVID-19 hit the world. In our career guidance in the past, students preferred to take tourism due to its many opportunities. The travel industry is grappling with an unprecedented wave of cancellations and a significant drop in demand amid strict governmental instructions to implement social distancing and the restriction of unnecessary travel. As of this time, however, there are travel flights that are allowed, especially for those who are working overseas. With the onset of the new variant of the COVID-19 virus, several countries have announced prohibitions from entering their country. As a future professional who will choose this area of career, careful decision is being encouraged. Real estate and housing sector. The real estate industry is facing great uncertainty due to COVID-19. With the current trend, however, people have learned to use online mode of selling, which includes real estate and the housing sector. You can expect a decline in customers in this sector because people have lesser income, which will affect their paying capacity. This sector, however, will still have its chance because people desire to have their homes as part of basic survival and safety. Sports industry. For students in the sports track aspiring to pursue a career in this field, you have to consider that this pandemic has greatly affected the conduct of sport not only locally but worldwide. However, people can always find ways for this kind of career to be back on track again. As of this time, any competition which will force people to gather is not yet allowed. In the future, it is best hoped that effective ways of doing sports will come its way. Information technology, media, research and development. When WHO raised COVID-19 status to a pandemic, more companies and academic institutions have raced to develop an effective vaccine. As of this time, there are already vaccines being used to protect people from COVID-19 virus. Recently, President Duterte signed into law Senate Bill 1520, which grants full scholarship to deserving and qualified students aspiring to take medicine and become a doctor, but are economically incapable to finish the degree. It is a government scholarship like the DOST scholars who render a return service program to the government after they graduate and pass the PRC. Under the law, this is an opportunity for poor and deserving students to avail of free medical education that will cover tuition fees, miscellaneous fees, internship, review and licensure expenses. This law will give chances for more students to secure a better future and at the same time contribute to society and the global economy. Food sector. At the onset of this pandemic, the food sector, including food distribution and retailing, has been under strain as a result of people panic buying and stockpiling food. It was regulated as the government declared some areas with lesser cases as modified general community quarantine, where some establishments are allowed to operate at a limited time. Although supermarkets have seen a huge demand on food products, restaurants and cafes have been forced to close. During that time, many of their employees have lost their jobs. Presently, there are a lot of restaurants and cafes who have already resumed their operations, observing the IATF protocols for the safety of staff and customers. In this time of pandemic, it is very important to consider your choice of career according to the demands and needs of the present society. Thus, you must have an updated information regarding the current societal demand as well the impact of pandemic to the global economy.